The recruitment station on Kepler 442b buzzed with activity like a disturbed hive. Beings from dozens of worlds crowded the massive hall, their voices creating a symphony of languages that few could understand. Some stood 8 feet tall with 4 arms and purple skin. Others floated in the air, their bodies made of shifting light. A few crawled on 6 legs while their tentacles waved in the air. Among all these strange creatures, one figure seemed almost invisible. Dae-hyun stood in line like any other recruit, but something about him made people look away without knowing why. He was average height for a human, with black hair and dark eyes that seemed to notice everything. His clothes were simple and clean. His posture was relaxed but ready. Commander Veltara processed applications with the speed of someone who had done this job for many years. Her purple skin gleamed under the station lights, and her 4 arms moved in perfect coordination. She had seen thousands of hopeful recruits over the decades. Most wanted glory. Some wanted money. A few wanted to serve something greater than themselves. When Dae-hyun approached her desk, Veltara barely looked up from her data pad. Another human from the outer colonies, probably seeking adventure among the stars. His file appeared on her screen as he handed over his identification card. The information was standard enough. Born on a small mining colony called New Seoul. Basic education in mathematics and engineering. 2 years of service in the local planetary defense force. Physical fitness scores that were good, but not exceptional. Combat training that covered the basics, but nothing advanced. What caught her attention was his request. "You want assignment to stealth operations," Veltara said, her voice carrying the slight accent of her homeworld. It was not a question. "Yes, Commander." "Do you understand what that means?" "The casualty rate in stealth ops is 60% in the first year. Most recruits avoid that division like a plague ship." Dae-hyun met her gaze without flinching. "I understand the risks, Commander." Something in his voice made Veltara pause. She had heard that tone before, but only from veterans who had seen real combat. This human claimed to have spent 2 years defending a mining colony from the occasional pirate raid. That should not produce the calm certainty she heard in his words. She activated the interview protocols on her datapad, standard questions designed to evaluate psychological fitness for covert operations. Questions about loyalty, about moral, flexibility, about the ability to kill when necessary. Dae-hyun answered each one with the same quiet confidence. When she asked about infiltration techniques, he described methods that were not taught in colonial defense courses. When she asked about information gathering, he outlined approaches that required years of training to master. "Where did you learn these techniques?" Veltara asked. "Training simulations, Commander. I spent a lot of time studying Dominion military doctrine." That was possible, she supposed. Dominion training materials were available to allied worlds. But the level of detail he demonstrated suggested more than casual study. It suggested obsession. "Why do you want to join the Dominion military?" "The Dominion represents order in the galaxy, Commander. Without that order, smaller worlds like mine would be defenseless against the chaos." The answer was textbook perfect. Too perfect, perhaps. But then again, many recruits memorized ideal responses before their interviews. Veltara made her decision. The stealth division needed bodies after their recent losses in the Omega sector. 3 full teams had been wiped out trying to gather intelligence on enemy positions. If this human wanted to volunteer for dangerous duty, who was she to refuse? "Report to Bay 17 at OR 800 tomorrow for transport to the Shadow Wing training facility," she said, stamping his orders with her official seal. "Congratulations, Recruit Dae-hyun. You are now property of the Dominion military." As Dae-hyun took his orders and moved away from the desk, Veltara noticed him glance toward the communications section of the station. A human female in a Dominion uniform was monitoring subspace transmissions, her fingers dancing across holographic controls with practiced skill. The woman looked up for just a moment. Her eyes met Dae-hyun's across the crowded hall. Something passed between them. Not recognition. Exactly, but acknowledgement. Like 2 people who shared a secret they could not speak aloud. The moment lasted less than a second. Then both returned to their duties as if nothing had happened. Veltara filed the interaction away in her memory. In her experience, Coincidences were rare in military settings. Two humans serving in different divisions of the same remote station could be chance. Two humans who seemed to know each other but pretended they did not was something else entirely. Later that evening, Dae-hyun stood alone in his assigned quarters. The room was small but clean, with a narrow bunk, a storage locker, and a small desk. A window looked out into space where distant stars provided the only light. He unpacked his few belongings with careful precision. Clothes went into the locker, folded according to military standards. Personal items found their places on the desk and shelves. Everything normal, everything expected, except for one small device that he removed from a hidden compartment in his duffel bag. It was no larger than his thumb, made of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. No Dominion scanner would detect it because it used no energy signature that their instruments could recognize. Dae-hyun held the device up to the window, pointing it toward a specific star cluster. He pressed a surface that looked like solid metal but yielded to his touch like soft plastic. The device activated for exactly 3 seconds, sending a burst transmission faster than light toward its distant target. Message sent. Phase 1 complete. The Dominion had accepted him into their most sensitive division. Soon he would have access to their deepest secrets, their most protected facilities, their most important leaders. He placed the device back in its hiding spot and began preparing for sleep. Tomorrow, he would begin his new life as a Shadow Wing operative. The Dominion believed they were training him to serve their interests. They had no idea they were training their own destruction. In the communications center, Hana finished her shift monitoring subspace traffic. Most of the transmissions were routine: supply requests, personnel transfers, weather reports from distant worlds. But buried in the normal chatter, her instruments had detected something unusual. A burst transmission had originated somewhere on the station. It lasted only 3 seconds and used an encryption method she did not recognize. The signal had been aimed toward the outer rim territories, far beyond Dominion space. She could report it through normal channels, should report it according to regulations. But something told her to wait, to watch, to learn more before involving security. The transmission had occurred just after the new recruits finished their interviews. Coincidence, perhaps, but like Commander Veltara, Hana had learned to be suspicious of coincidences. She made a copy of the transmission data and stored it in her personal files. Then she began the slow process of tracing its origin. Whatever was happening on this station, she intended to discover the truth before it could threaten the people she had sworn to protect. Outside her window, the same stars that had witnessed Dae-hyun's message continued their ancient dance across the void. They had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. They would witness whatever came next with the same cold indifference they had shown to every other chapter in the galaxy's long and violent history. 3 months had passed since Dae-hyun joined the Shadow Wing, and his reputation grew with each mission. His squad leader, Thane-kor, was a 7-foot-tall reptilian warrior whose scarred face told stories of 100 battles. The Sauridian had fought alongside the best operatives in Dominion space, but even he admitted that the quiet human was something special. He moves like smoke through water, Thane-kor told Commander Veltara during his monthly report. I have seen phase shifters who make more noise than this human. Veltara studied the mission files on her desk. Every operation involving Dae-hyun showed the same pattern: impossible infiltrations completed without triggering a single alarm. Enemy strongholds neutralized with surgical precision. Intelligence gathered from locations that should have been impenetrable. The numbers did not make sense. Colonial militias trained soldiers to defend settlements and escort supply convoys. They did not create operatives capable of walking through the most advanced security systems in the galaxy, like they did not exist. On Nexus Prime, the pattern became impossible to ignore. The pirate stronghold was built into an asteroid that had been fortified over decades. Its defenses included energy shields, automated turrets, motion sensors, thermal scanners, and pressure plates sensitive enough to detect a falling feather. Thane-kor's team included 5 operatives. Besides himself and Dae-hyun, there was Jin Woo, a hot-tempered human demolitions expert who liked to solve problems with explosives. Zixara was an Etherian who could phase through solid matter but only for short periods. Kesselin was a Nexari telepath who could read surface thoughts from most species. The mission briefing had been simple: infiltrate the asteroid base, recover stolen Dominion weapon designs, extract without alerting the pirates to what had been taken. Intelligence estimated they would need at least 6 hours to complete the objectives. Everything went wrong in the first 10 minutes. The pirates had installed new detection systems that Dominion intelligence knew nothing about. Quantum resonance, scanners that could track molecular displacement, biosignature analyzers that could identify known Dominion operatives from samples in their database, temporal displacement sensors that detected the Etherian phasing ability. Jin Wu triggered the first alarm when his heartbeat spiked in response to adrenaline. The biosensors picked up the change and identified him as a non-pirate life form. Klaxons began wailing throughout the base. Blast doors slammed shut. Emergency lighting bathed everything in angry red. Abort mission, Thane-Kor ordered through the comm system. All units to extraction point Alpha, but Daehyun had already vanished. Thane-Kor tried to track his position using the squad's internal monitoring system. Every Shadow Wing operative carried a microtransmitter that reported location and vital signs to the team leader. Daehyun's signal showed him moving deeper into the base, toward the most heavily defended sections. "Where are you going?" Thane-Kor demanded through the comm link. "Getting the job done," came the calm reply. What happened next would be studied in Dominion military academies for years to come. Security cameras throughout the base captured fragments of the impossible. A figure moving faster than the recording systems could properly track. Guards found unconscious in corridors with no memory of how they had fallen. Sealed blast doors opening and closing without any trace of who had accessed them. In the central command center, the pirate leader watched his security feeds with growing horror. Every defense system was being bypassed, as if it did not exist. Whoever was loose in his base knew the layout better than his own people did. They moved through ventilation shafts that did not appear on any schematic. They accessed computer terminals using codes that should not have existed. "How many of them are there?" the pirate captain asked his security chief. "We think just one, sir, but that's impossible. No single operative could do this." Meanwhile, Thane-Kor and the rest of the team fought their way toward the extraction point through waves of angry pirates. Jin Wu's explosives cleared blocked corridors. Zixara phased through walls to scout ahead. Kesselin used her telepathy to detect ambushes before they could be sprung. They were pinned down in a maintenance bay when Daehyun's voice came through the comm system again. "Extraction point is compromised. New route uploaded to your navigation systems. The data package is secure." Thane-Kor looked at his tactical display. A new path appeared marked in blue light. It led through sections of the base that their intelligence briefings claimed were impassable. Sealed maintenance tunnels, deactivated transport tubes, areas that had been abandoned when the pirates first occupied the asteroid. They had no choice but to trust him. Following the glowing path, they found every obstacle had been cleared ahead of them. Doors stood open. Security systems remained silent. Guard patrols had been redirected to other areas of the base. At the extraction point, their transport waited with engines already running. Daehyun sat in one of the passenger seats as if he had been there the entire time. His breathing was normal. His uniform was clean. He showed no signs of having fought his way through the most secure pirate base in the Outer Rim. "How?" Jin Wu asked, staring at him in amazement. "Training," Daehyun replied simply. During the flight back to base, Thane-Kor reviewed the mission data. The weapon designs they had been sent to recover were stored in his tactical pack, copied from systems that required 3 different authorization codes to access. Security footage showed the central computer core being infiltrated, but the figure on the recordings moved too fast for clear identification. Most disturbing of all, the pirate base's own sensors had tracked the intruder's movements. The data showed someone who knew the facility's layout perfectly, who understood every security protocol, who moved through defended areas like they owned them. "This is not possible," Thane-Kor muttered, studying the readings. Beside him, Daehyun closed his eyes and appeared to sleep. but his hand rested on the small device hidden in his utility pouch. Another message would be sent tonight. Another report on Dominion capabilities and weaknesses. Phase 2 was ahead of schedule. Back on the command station, Commander Veltara received Thane Corps' mission report with growing unease. She had requested detailed analysis of Dae-hyun's performance, hoping to understand how a colonial recruit had become their most effective operative. The answer was troubling. Every technique he used could be found in classified Dominion training manuals. Movement patterns that took years to master. Equipment knowledge that required security clearance levels he did not possess. Combat skills that suggested training, with weapons he should never have seen. She opened a secure communication channel to Dominion Intelligence Headquarters. It was time to dig deeper into Dae-hyun's background. Colonial Defense Forces kept detailed records of their personnel, training schedules, equipment allocations, mission histories. If Dae-hyun was who he claimed to be, those records would confirm his story. If he was something else entirely, the truth would be buried somewhere in the data. Either way, she intended to find answers. The safety of the Dominion might depend on discovering who this remarkable human really was and what he truly wanted from them. In her quarters across the station, Hana continued monitoring subspace communications. She had detected 3 more burst transmissions since the first one. Each lasted exactly 3 seconds. Each used the same unknown encryption. Each was aimed toward the same distant star cluster. Someone on the station was reporting to unknown contacts beyond Dominion space. The timing suggested it was connected to Shadow Wing operations. The encryption suggested it was not friendly communication. She had 2 choices: report her findings to security and risk being wrong about a loyal operative, or continue investigating on her own and risk missing a genuine threat to Dominion safety. Hana made her decision. She would watch. She would wait. She would gather evidence until the truth became clear. In the darkness between the stars, ancient powers were moving. Plans laid decades in the making were beginning to unfold. And at the center of it all, a quiet human operative continued his deadly work, trusted by those he was trained to destroy. The Shadow Wing had embraced their most dangerous enemy. They simply did not know it yet. The investigation began at dawn on a Tuesday that would change everything. Commander Veltara sat in her office reviewing personnel files while her newest team member worked at the desk across from her. Ryung-ho was a methodical human analyst who had requested transfer from the outer colonies. His reputation for finding patterns in complex data had earned him a position in Dominion intelligence. "Look at these mission reports," Ryung-ho said, pointing to his holographic display. "Every operation involving Operative Dae-hyun shows the same unusual characteristic." Veltara moved to examine his analysis. Charts and graphs filled the air between them, showing success rates, casualty figures, and timeline comparisons. The data painted a picture that defied explanation. "Enemy resistance is always significant but never overwhelming," Ryung-ho continued. "It's as if someone is providing them with just enough information to create believable opposition without making the missions impossible." The implications made Veltara's skin crawl. If Ryung-ho was correct, then Dae-hyun was not just an exceptional operative. He was a puppet master orchestrating elaborate performances designed to build trust while gathering intelligence. "What about his background verification?" she asked. "That's where it gets interesting," Ryung-ho replied, calling up another set of files. "New Soul Colony exists. Their defense force exists. But their records show gaps in the exact period when Dae-hyun claims to have served there. The colony's communication log showed months of missing data. Training records had been corrupted by what appeared to be computer malfunctions. Personnel files contained information that matched Dae-hyun's story perfectly, but the data signatures suggested they had been created recently, rather than over years of service. Someone with significant resources has been building this identity for a long time, Veltara concluded. Before they could dig deeper, an urgent message arrived from Naval Intelligence. Joint operations required Shadow Wing support for a critical mission on Titan's Edge. The hegemony of assembled minds had established a forward base there, threatening 3 Dominion colonies with their advanced AI constructs. Veltara wanted to refuse the assignment until her investigation was complete, but the mission parameters required their most skilled operatives. Despite her suspicions, Daehyun remained their best infiltration specialist. "I'm assigning additional personnel to his team," she told Ri Young-ho. "If he's compromised, we need witnesses to document what happens." The team assembled in briefing room 7 included familiar faces and new ones. Thanakor would lead as usual. Jinwoo and Zixara returned from their previous successful mission. Sojin joined them as a technical specialist, her expertise in AI systems making her invaluable against hegemony constructs. During the mission briefing, Sojin studied Daehyun carefully. She had heard stories about the remarkable human operative, but seeing him in person raised questions. He sat quietly in the back of the room, taking no notes, asking no questions. Yet his eyes tracked every detail of the tactical display with perfect focus. "The hegemony base is protected by adaptive defense systems," the briefing officer explained. "Their AI constructs learn from each attack, making them more effective against similar tactics." Most operatives would be taking detailed notes about enemy capabilities and defensive layouts. Daehyun simply nodded as if he already knew everything. Being discussed. The transport to Titan's Edge took 18 hours. During the flight, Sojin tried to engage Daehyun in conversation about the technical challenges they would face. His responses showed an understanding of AI systems that seemed far beyond what a colonial defense recruit should possess. "Where did you learn about quantum processing cores?" she asked. "Training simulations," he replied, the same answer he gave to every question about his unusual knowledge. The mission went wrong from the moment they set foot on the planet's surface. The hegemony had deployed new hunter-killer constructs that seemed designed specifically to counter Dominion stealth technology. Sensor networks that should not have detected their presence immediately locked onto the team's location. "They know. We're here," Thanakor reported through the comm system. "All units maintain stealth protocols and proceed to objective." The advance toward the enemy base became a nightmare of coordinated AI attacks. Hunter-killers emerged from the ground like deadly flowers, their weapon systems calibrated to penetrate Dominion armor. Aerial constructs descended from the sky in perfect formation, their targeting systems more accurate than anything the Dominion had encountered before. One by one, the team members fell. Zixara tried to phase through a construct's weapon beam and discovered that the AI had predicted her movement patterns. The energy discharge caught her partially materialized, causing fatal system shock. Jinwoo's explosives proved useless against enemies that adapted to each detonation, learning to disperse and reform around the blast zones. Thanakor fought bravely but futilely against constructs that analyzed his combat style in real time, countering each attack with increasing precision. His final transmission was a warning to abort the mission and evacuate immediately. Only Daehyun and Sojin remained alive, trapped in a maintenance facility while hunter-killers surrounded the building. Through the windows, they could see dozens of constructs taking position for the final assault. "We're going to die here," Sojin whispered, checking her weapon's power levels. Daehyun stood and moved toward the door with the same calm he showed during mission briefings. "Stay behind me," he said simply. "Do exactly what I do, when I do it." What followed challenged every assumption Sojin had made about human capabilities. Daehyun stepped outside into a storm of energy weapons and simply disappeared. Not the way Zixara had phased through matter, but the way shadows vanished when light sources moved. He reappeared behind the nearest hunter-killer and tore it apart with his bare hands. Metal that should have been harder than diamond crumpled like paper in his grip. Circuits that should have been protected by multiple redundancy systems sparked and died at his touch. The other constructs turned to engage this new threat, their weapons tracking with machine precision. But Daehyun moved faster than their targeting systems could compensate for. He flowed between energy beams like water finding the spaces between stones. Sojin watched in terrified amazement as he dismantled construct after construct. His movements showed knowledge of AI architecture that even she did not possess. He knew exactly which components to disable to cause total system failure. His attacks targeted connection points and processing nodes with surgical accuracy. In less than 5 minutes, 20 advanced hunter-killers lay in smoking ruins around the maintenance facility. Dae-hyun stood among the wreckage, breathing normally, his uniform torn but his body unmarked. "How is this possible?" So-jin asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dae-hyun looked at her with eyes that suddenly seemed much older than his apparent age. The expression on his face was not entirely human anymore. It was the look of something that had been designed for killing and had just remembered its true purpose. "You will not speak of what you saw here," he said quietly. "To anyone. Ever." The threat in his voice was unmistakable. So-jin realized that she was alone on a hostile planet with something that wore a human face, but was not entirely human anymore. Whatever Dae-hyun truly was, she had just witnessed capabilities that no colonial recruit should possess. During the extraction flight, she sat as far from him as possible and said nothing. But her mind raced with questions that had no comfortable answers. The Dominion had recruited something that could destroy AI constructs designed to be invincible, something that moved and fought like it had been created specifically to kill machines. Back on the command station, Veltara received the casualty reports with a mixture of grief and suspicion. Another mission where Dae-hyun was the sole survivor. Another impossible victory achieved through methods that defied explanation. She activated her secure communication terminal and sent an urgent message to Dominion Intelligence Headquarters. The investigation into Dae-hyun's background needed to become the highest priority. Whatever he was, wherever he came from, the truth needed to be discovered before it was too late. In her quarters, Hana detected the latest burst transmission at exactly 23:47 hours station time. The timing matched Dae-hyun's return from Titan's Edge. The encryption remained unbreakable, but the transmission pattern had changed. This message was longer than the others, containing more data. Something significant had happened on that mission, something worth reporting to unknown contacts in detail. She made her decision. Tomorrow, she would begin her own investigation into the quiet human operative who seemed to be at the center of everything. If the official channels were moving too slowly, she would find answers through other means. The stars outside her window continued their ancient dance, indifferent to the growing crisis aboard the station. But among the distant lights, signals traveled at the speed of thought toward waiting receivers. Plans set in motion years ago were approaching their culmination. And at the heart of it all, a weapon disguised as a man prepared for the next phase of his mission. The Dominion's trust in him was now complete. Soon that trust would be used to destroy them from within. The truth arrived on a Thursday morning in the form of classified files that should not have existed. Commander Veltara stared at her terminal screen in disbelief as document after document painted a picture of betrayal that stretched across decades. Project Shadowfall had been buried so deep in Dominion intelligence archives that only 3 people in the galaxy were supposed to know about it. The project files were marked with security levels that exceeded her clearance, but someone had granted her access anonymously. Someone who wanted her to know the truth. The first document was dated 23 years ago. A Dominion survey ship had made first contact with Earth, discovering a species that seemed ideal for Alliance membership. Humans were adaptable, intelligent, and eager to join the galactic community. Initial negotiations had proceeded smoothly. Too smoothly, according to an intelligence analyst named Kresh. His report noted that human negotiators seemed to know details about Dominion military structure that had never been discussed in diplomatic meetings. They understood Dominion weaknesses and strengths as if they had been studying them for years. The next document made Veltara's blood run cold. Kresh had been found dead in his quarters 2 days after filing his report. The official cause was equipment malfunction. The unofficial investigation suggested assassination by someone with intimate knowledge of Dominion technology. Project Shadowfall had been created in response to growing evidence that humanity's first contact was not what it appeared to be. Deep, cover operatives had been infiltrating human space for months before the official meetings began. What they discovered was terrifying. Earth's government was genuine in their desire for peaceful relations, but a shadow organization called the Terran Ascendancy had been preparing for galactic contact for decades. They had been monitoring Dominion communications, studying captured technology, and training operatives to pose as ordinary humans seeking alliance membership. The Ascendancy's plan was elegant in its simplicity: flood Dominion space with human recruits who would serve with distinction while gathering intelligence about military capabilities, political structures, and technological secrets. When enough operatives were in position, they would simultaneously cripple the Dominion's command infrastructure and seize control of key strategic locations. Veltara scrolled through personnel files that made her sick. 12,000 humans had been placed throughout Dominion space over the past 2 decades. They served in every branch of the military, in research facilities, in government offices, and in communication centers, all waiting for the activation signal that would turn them from trusted allies into deadly enemies. The final document in the series was a psychological profile of the perfect Ascendancy operative: enhanced reflexes through genetic manipulation, accelerated learning through neural conditioning, complete loyalty to the mission through behavioral programming, and most chilling of all, the ability to suppress their artificial nature so completely that even they believed they were ordinary humans, until activation. The profile matched Daehyun perfectly: every unusual capability he had displayed, every impossible feat he had accomplished, every inconsistency in his background. He was not a human seeking to serve the Dominion. He was a weapon designed to destroy it from within. A soft chime from her communication system announced an incoming priority message. Admiral Kassira's face appeared on the screen, her expression grim. "Commander Veltara, report to my office immediately. We need to discuss your investigation into Operative Daehyun." The Admiral's office was located in the most secure section of the station, protected by multiple layers of security screening. Veltara had been there only twice before, both times to receive commendations for exceptional service. This visit felt very different. Admiral Kassira sat behind a desk made from polished stone taken from her homeworld. Her forearms moved restlessly as she reviewed data on multiple screens simultaneously. When Veltara entered, the Admiral gestured for her to take a seat without looking up from her work. "You have been asking questions about Project Shadowfall," the Admiral said finally. "Yes, Admiral. The evidence suggests that Operative Daehyun may be compromised." "Compromised?" The Admiral's voice carried bitter amusement. "That is one way to describe it." Kassira activated a holographic projector that filled the air above her desk with images. Star charts showing human population centers throughout Dominion space, personnel files of humans serving in sensitive positions, communication intercepts suggesting coordinated intelligence gathering operations. "We have known about the Ascendancy infiltration for 3 years, the Admiral admitted. "Every human recruit who has joined the Dominion military in that time has been carefully monitored. We allowed them to continue their activities in order to identify the full scope of their operation." Veltara felt the foundation of her assumptions crumbling. "You knew Daehyun was a spy and did nothing?" "We did what was necessary to protect the Dominion. The Ascendancy had to believe their operation was succeeding while we mapped their network and identified their objectives." The holographic display shifted to show Central Command Station Omega, the most secure facility in Dominion space. Military leaders from across the galaxy coordinated the war effort from that station. If the Ascendancy wanted to cripple Dominion, command capabilities Omega would be their primary target. "Daehyun has been assigned to a security evaluation mission at Station Omega," Admiral Kassira continued. "His orders are to identify potential vulnerabilities in our most sensitive facility. You're sending him directly to the target he was designed to destroy? We are giving him the opportunity to complete his mission while we observe and document the Ascendancy's methods. Every device he places, every security system he compromises, every piece of intelligence he gathers, will be monitored and recorded." Veltara realized the terrible scope of the Admiral's plan. "You're using Station Omega as bait, risking thousands of lives to catch a handful of spies. I am protecting millions of lives by ending this threat permanently." When Dae-hyun and his fellow operatives reveal themselves, we will capture or kill them all simultaneously. The Ascendancy will lose their primary weapon and their intelligence network in a single stroke. The conversation was interrupted by alarms echoing through the station. Emergency lights bathed the Admiral's office in pulsing red as the station's defense systems activated automatically. "What is happening?" Veltara demanded. But Admiral Kassira was already accessing the station's security feeds through her neural interface. "Unauthorized detonations in Section 7, the Admiral reported, her voice tight with controlled panic. "Multiple hull breaches. Someone has activated explosive devices throughout the station's critical systems." On the holographic display, security cameras showed chaos erupting across the station. Blast doors sealing automatically to contain atmosphere loss. Emergency teams rushing toward damaged areas. And in the midst of the confusion, figures moving with purpose through corridors that should have been sealed. "The Ascendancy operatives are activating," Admiral Kassira realized. "This is not the plan. They were supposed to wait until reaching Station Omega." Veltara watched the feeds with growing horror as she recognized some of the figures moving through the station. Tae-young from the maintenance section, Yu-jin from the medical facility, even Hana from the communications center, moving with the same deadly precision that Dae-hyun had displayed on Titan's Edge. "How many of them are on this station?" she asked. "We identified 47 suspected operatives," the Admiral replied. "But if they are all activating simultaneously, our containment protocols may not be sufficient." The station shook under the impact of another series of explosions. Through the Admiral's window, Veltara could see escape pods launching into space as non-essential personnel evacuated. But the real question remained unanswered. Where was Dae-hyun during all this chaos? Was he following his programming like the others, or was there still something human left inside the weapon he had become? The answer came through the emergency communication system as Dae-hyun's voice echoed through the station. "All personnel evacuate immediately. The devices I have placed will detonate in 15 minutes. Anyone remaining on board will die." But instead of the cold precision of an activated weapon, his voice carried something unexpected. Urgency. Fear. And underneath it all, what sounded almost like regret. Admiral Kassira stared at the communication panel in confusion. Why is he warning us? That is not consistent with Ascendancy programming. Veltara had a different question. If Dae-hyun was trying to destroy the station, why give people time to escape? And if he was trying to save lives, why activate the explosives at all? The answers to those questions would determine whether the Dominion's greatest enemy had just become their most unlikely ally. But with 14 minutes remaining until detonation, there was no time for speculation. Only action would reveal the truth about what Dae-hyun had truly chosen to become. The explosion stopped exactly 13 minutes after Dae-hyun's warning. Throughout the station, emergency teams found devices that had been carefully disabled rather than detonated. Blast doors that had been sealed to contain damage were opened from the inside. Systems that should have been destroyed were intact and functioning normally. Commander Veltara found Dae-hyun in the station's central hub, sitting calmly on a maintenance crate while security teams surrounded him with weapons drawn. His hands were visible and empty. His expression was resigned but strangely peaceful. "I need to speak with the High Council," he said when she approached. "There are things about Project Shadowfall that your intelligence services do not understand." Veltara studied his face carefully. The cold precision she had seen on Titan's Edge was gone, replaced by something that looked genuinely human. Whatever had happened during the past hour had changed him in ways that their profiles of Ascendancy operatives suggested should be impossible. "Why did you disable your own devices?" she asked. "Because I finally remembered who I used to be before they made me into this." He gestured at himself with obvious disgust. "My name is Dae-hyun Park. I was born on New Seoul just like my files say, but I was kidnapped when I was 12 years old." The revelation hit Veltara like a physical blow. The Ascendancy had not just trained willing volunteers. They had taken children and turned them into weapons through procedures that destroyed their original personalities. "The conditioning is breaking down," Dae-hyun continued. "It has been for weeks, ever since I started working with your people instead of just Observing them, the Ascendancy programmed us to see Dominion species as targets, not as individuals. But when Jinwoo died saving Zixara on that last mission, something inside me cracked. Admiral Kasaira arrived with a full tactical team, clearly expecting to find the station under enemy control. Instead, she found her prisoner offering information that could change the entire nature of the conflict. "How many others are like you?" the Admiral demanded. "All of us," Dae-hyun replied simply. 12,000 kidnapped children turned into perfect infiltrators. But the conditioning requires regular reinforcement to maintain stability. Most of us have been away from Ascendancy control for years. The programming is failing throughout the network. Before anyone could respond to this revelation, new alarms began sounding throughout the station. The sensor networks had detected incoming ships dropping out of hyperspace at the system's edge. Fast attack vessels flying no recognized flags, heading directly toward the station. "Yoon-jae," Dae-hyun said quietly, and Veltara heard real fear in his voice for the first time. "She's my handler. If she's coming here personally, it means the Ascendancy knows their control over me is failing." The tactical display in the hub showed 12 ships in attack formation, their profiles matching no known Dominion vessel designs. As they approached, communication signals reached the station, demanding immediate surrender and the return of stolen Ascendancy property. "They consider you property?" Admiral Kasaira asked. "We all are. Weapons that have malfunctioned and need to be reclaimed or destroyed." Dae-hyun stood and moved toward the tactical display. "Yoon-jae won't negotiate. She'll board this station. Eliminate everyone who has had contact with me, and either drag me back for reconditioning or kill me to prevent intelligence leaks." Veltara realized they were facing an impossible tactical situation. The station's defenses were designed to repel pirate raids and minor military incursions, not purpose-built assault ships crewed by enhanced operatives. Even if they could hold off the attack, doing so would mean war with an enemy they barely understood. "There is another option," Dae-hyun said quietly. "I know their ship configurations, their boarding procedures, their weapons capabilities. I know because I was trained to use all of them." "You want to fight your own people?" Thankor asked, having arrived with the emergency response team. "They stopped being my people the day they stole my childhood and turned me into a killer," Dae-hyun replied. "The question is whether you can trust someone who was designed to betray you." Admiral Kasaira studied him carefully. Every instinct told her that trusting an admitted enemy agent was madness. But the alternative was watching helplessly as the station was overrun by operatives who made Dae-hyun look ordinary by comparison. "What do you need?" she asked finally. "Access to the station's internal security systems, a small team of volunteers who can follow orders without asking questions, and someone to watch my back who will kill me if I show any sign of reverting to my original programming." So Jin stepped forward before anyone else could volunteer. "I'll do it. I've seen what you can become when the conditioning takes control. If you start turning back into that thing, I'll stop you." The approaching ships began launching boarding pods while they spoke. Sleek metal cylinders designed to punch through station hulls and deliver assault teams directly into critical areas. The station's automated defenses engaged, filling space with energy beams and projectile bursts. But the pods were heavily armored and equipped with advanced countermeasures. "They'll target the command center first," Dae-hyun predicted, accessing the station's defensive grid through a nearby terminal. Yoon-jae believes in eliminating leadership before securing objectives. His fingers moved across the holographic controls with inhuman speed, reconfiguring shield geometries and weapon targeting priorities. The station's defenses became suddenly more effective as he fed them intelligence about Ascendancy ship vulnerabilities. "How do you know their attack patterns so well?" Veltara asked. "Because I helped design them." The admission carried obvious shame. Before the conditioning started breaking down, I sent detailed reports about Dominion defensive capabilities. The Ascendancy has been planning this attack for months. The first boarding pod struck the station's hull in Section 12, exactly where Dae-hyun had predicted. Emergency bulkheads sealed automatically, but cutting torches began burning through the reinforced barriers within seconds. Whatever was in those pods was equipped to deal with standard Dominion security measures. Yunjai will come with the second wave, Dae-hyun continued, tracking the incoming pods on his display. She'll let the assault team secure the primary objectives while she hunts for me personally. Veltara found herself in the surreal position of receiving tactical advice from someone. 6 months after the battle at the station, the galaxy had become a very different place. The revelation of Project Shadowfall had shattered the alliance between the Dominion and Earth's government. Trade routes closed overnight. Diplomatic missions were recalled. Military cooperation ended as suspicion poisoned relationships that had taken decades to build. Earth's leaders protested their innocence, claiming no knowledge of the Terran Ascendancy's operations. But their protests fell on deaf ears as evidence mounted of how deeply the Shadow Organization had infiltrated both human and Dominion society. Trust once broken proved almost impossible to rebuild. Dae-hyun operated from the shadows now, technically a fugitive from both civilizations, but working toward a goal that transcended their current conflict. His small team included allies from both sides who understood that the real enemy was not Earth or the Dominion, but the Ascendancy itself. Commander Veltara had been stripped of her rank for protecting a known enemy agent, but she continued working with Dae-hyun because she understood what was at stake. Thanakor and Sojin had volunteered to join their underground mission, despite knowing it meant exile from the only homes they had ever known. The reformed Ascendancy operatives proved to be their most valuable assets. Minho provided intelligence about Ascendancy command structures. Yunseo used her technical expertise to intercept and decode enemy communications. Even Yujin contributed her medical knowledge to help other recovering operatives overcome their conditioning. Their mission was ambitious beyond reason: locate and neutralize Director Sang-wook before he could trigger the final phase of his plan. Intelligence gathered from captured agents revealed the terrifying scope of the Ascendancy's true objectives. Project Shadowfall was never about conquest, Dae-hyun explained to his team during a briefing aboard their stolen transport ship. It was about provocation. The Ascendancy wants a war between Earth and the Dominion that will devastate both sides. The holographic display showed star charts marking colonies that would be destroyed in such a conflict. Billions of lives hung in the balance while two great civilizations prepared to tear each other apart. Unaware that they were following a script written by humanity's darkest faction. Sang-wook believes that compassion is humanity's greatest weakness, Yunseo added, her voice carrying the bitter knowledge of someone who had once believed those lies. He sees cooperation between species as corruption of human genetic superiority. Their search led them through the dark spaces between civilized systems, following a trail of hidden bases and secret communications. The Ascendancy had spent decades building shadow empire that existed parallel to legitimate human space, recruiting from the desperate and the dispossessed. Each base they discovered revealed more about the organization's true nature. Children taken from their families and subject to conditioning that erased their original personalities. Scientists working on genetic modifications that would create a master race of enhanced humans. Military strategists planning campaigns of extermination against alien populations. They're not trying to make humanity better, so Jin observed grimly, after reviewing files from a research facility. They're trying to turn us into something that isn't human anymore. The trail finally led to the Void Nebula, a region of space so dangerous that even Dominion long-range sensors could not penetrate its chaotic energy fields. Hidden within that cosmic storm was the Ascendancy's primary command base, protected by hazards that made approach seem impossible. But Dae-hyun had been trained to accomplish impossible missions. Using techniques learned during his time as a Shadow Wing operative, he navigated their ship through energy storms that would have destroyed any normal vessel. His enhanced reflexes and tactical awareness, gifts that had once made him a perfect weapon, now served to protect his new family of allies. The Ascendancy base was a marvel of hidden engineering. Built inside a massive asteroid, it housed facilities that rivaled anything the Dominion had constructed. Manufacturing centers producing advanced weapons. Training complexes where the next generation of conditioned operatives learned to hate everything that was not human. Command centers coordinating operations across dozens of star systems. At the heart of it all was Director Sang-wook himself, a man whose decades of genetic modification had left him barely recognizable as human. He stood 7 feet tall, his enhanced muscles visible beneath skin that had been altered to resist radiation and toxins. His eyes glowed with an inner light that spoke of technological implants designed to process information faster than any natural brain. "So the defective weapon returns," he said when Dae-hyun and his team finally reached the command center. "I had hoped that distance from alien contamination would restore your programming. Instead, you bring that contamination with you." The final battle was not just between opposing forces, but between competing visions of what humanity could become. Sang-wook commanded operatives who had never experienced the conditioning breakdown that affected older agents. They fought with perfect coordination, viewing their alien opponents as vermin to be exterminated. But Dae-hyun's team fought with something the Ascendancy could not understand or counter: genuine cooperation between species. Veltara's tactical knowledge combined with Thanakor's combat experience. Sojin's technical expertise enhanced by Minho's understanding of Ascendancy systems. Yoonseo's communication skills coordinating with Yoojin's medical support. The battle raged through the base's corridors, while Sang-wook prepared his ultimate weapon, a signal that would simultaneously activate every remaining sleeper agent. Across Dominion space, thousands of operatives would receive new programming designed to eliminate key military and political leaders in a coordinated strike. But the signal required a specific transmission array that could punch through the void, Nebula's interference, and that array was protected by security systems that recognized only Sang-wook's personal authorization codes. "You cannot stop what has already begun," the director taunted, as alarms echoed through the base. In minutes, every alien-loving human, and every human-trusting alien will be dead. Purity will be restored to our species. Dae-hyun reached the transmission array just as Sang-wook began entering his authorization sequence. The two enhanced humans faced each other across a control room that represented the culmination of decades of planning and preparation. "You were my greatest creation," Sang-wook said sadly. "A perfect weapon who chose to become weak." "I chose to become human again," Dae-hyun replied, and struck. The battle between them destroyed most of the command center's equipment, but the transmission array remained protected by energy shields that could only be disabled by the director's biometric signature. Even as Sang-wook fell, his dying hand reached for the activation control. The signal began transmitting across the galaxy, carrying new programming to thousands of waiting agents. But instead of instructions for mass assassination, the signal carried something else entirely. Yoonseo had modified the transmission during the final moments of the battle, replacing Sang-wook's code with a message that appealed to the humanity still buried within each conditioned operative. "Remember who you were before they made you into this," the message said in Dae-hyun's voice. "Remember the people you've learned to care about. Choose what you want to become." Across Dominion space, sleeper agents received the signal and found themselves facing the same choice that had defined Dae-hyun's transformation. Some chose to complete their original programming, becoming the weapons they had been designed to be, but many others chose differently, breaking free from conditioning that had defined their lives for years. The war between Earth and the Dominion did not end overnight. Too much damage had been done, too much trust destroyed for immediate reconciliation. But the foundation for peace had been laid by those who understood that cooperation was stronger than hatred. A year later, Dae-hyun stood before a joint commission of Earth and Dominion representatives, accepting a new role as special liaison between the slowly healing civilizations. His past as humanity's most dangerous weapon had been transformed into its greatest diplomatic asset. "The scars will take generations to heal," he told the assembled delegates. "But we have something the Ascendancy never understood. We have the ability to choose what we become, rather than accepting what others try to make us." Commander Veltara, reinstated and promoted for her role in preventing galactic war, watched from the observation gallery as former enemies worked together on plans for mutual cooperation. The stealth warrior who had once represented humanity's darkest ambitions had become a symbol of its potential for redemption. In the shadows between the stars, Other threats waited to test the bonds between civilizations. Pirates who preyed on the weak. Ancient evils stirring in forgotten regions of space. Technologies that could destroy worlds if they fell into the wrong hands. But humanity had learned something precious during the Shadowfall crisis. They had learned that their greatest strength came not from genetic superiority or technological dominance, but from their ability to forge genuine connections with other species, to choose cooperation over conquest, understanding over hatred, hope over despair.